Hi, and welcome back to Reverse Shot. This is the show where we turn the camera around and look at the foibles and, of course, the accomplishments of the media. Now, we've been on hiatus as we prepare a documentary about the first 100 days of the Donald Trump new administration. But we couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about this, the first White House briefing of the new Don the Con administration with the youngest press secretary in history, Karoline Leavitt. Now, it's been a tough 10 days for the press, but never fear. According to the new press secretary, we are in a golden age of America, and everyone will soon feel the love of President Trump. Well, except maybe the legacy or corporate media.
And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets.
Still, she may have insulted us, but some of us were just giddy as all heck and fawning all over the new press secretary.
So, Karoline, first off, thank you to you and President Trump for actually giving voices to new media outlets that represent millions and millions of Americans. The thing I would add, I've got a two-part question. Just, can you expand upon what steps the White House is going to take to bring more voices, not less, which is what our founder, Andrew Breitbart, believed in, into this room where they rightfully belong?
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said in my opening statement, Matt, it is a priority of this White House to honor the First Amendment.
Then there's Zeke Miller. Now, he's an employee of the Associated Press and one of those employed by the legacy media that Leavitt just loved to go after. He asked her a quick question. Was she committed to telling the truth while in the White House?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job.
Kind of a silly question. It, presumes that neither the press secretary or maybe Zeke has ever seen the show The Blacklist. Everybody lies. Anyway, what if the president lies? Is she going to tell the truth or speak on behalf of the president if she knows he's lying? Good question, right? Well, no one asked it, and she didn't offer any answers, of course. I guess she thinks she can have it both ways. But that was just the beginning. Literally everything we've spoken about occurred within the first 5 minutes of that nearly 1 hour long press conference. Leavitt spent a lot of it preaching about the press, and there, of course, was more fawning tossed in her direction.
Welcome. You look great. You're doing a great job.
But you know what? It wasn't just the fawning. It was the insipid questions.
Talked about transparency, and some of us in this room know how just transparent President Trump has been the last 5 or 6 years. I think you'll do the same. My question is, do you think this latest incident with the president of Colombia is indicative of the global, powerful respect they have for President Trump moving forward, not only to engage in economic diplomacy with these countries, but also world peace?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Sam Donaldson, Helen Thomas, and Dan Rather, these folks are not. And forget Jim Acosta, he's gone too. He took a buyout on his CNN contract that was going to have him relegated to the midnight shift. It's not the late night with Jim Acosta or David Letterman. Here is Jim's final sign-off.
It is never a good time to bow down to a tyrant. I've always believed it's the job of the press to hold power to account. I've always tried to do that here at CNN, and I plan on doing all of that in the future. One final message. Don't give in to the lies. Don't give in to the fear. Hold on to the truth and to hope.
I'm with Jim. I want to hold on to hope. My hope right now is that we get some answers from the Trump administration instead of the circus antics that he's well known for and the press has indulged him in. Not likely to happen. You saw reporters taking selfies, smiling, and cheering about the numbers of reporters back at the White House. It would be nice if someone would ask the new press secretary if she finds it at all ironic that Trump is telling us he's going to deport violent criminal immigrants, while in many cases, he's deported immigrants whose only crime was nonviolent. They entered the United States, they've paid their taxes, and they're working their asses off. While at the same time, Donald Trump pardoned or commuted the sentences of 1,500 seditious Americans who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, and that included some of the poor boys who were responsible for the most violent offenses. He calls the previous criminals, he calls the Proud Boys patriots. So, where was that line of questioning? And while the Constitution specifically states that the power of the purse strings, and I'm going to look this up, belongs with Congress, no one asked Leavitt how it is legally possible for the president to freeze aid and salaries on any portion of the budget. We asked around the question, and actually this is one of the better things that we did in this first press conference. There were several people who continually asked, kind of bit around the cookie, didn't take the chomp out that they needed to about it violating the Constitution. It quite literally is a violation of the Constitution, so egregious that why we didn't ask about it in the briefing the very next day, on Wednesday, Donald Trump rescinded that executive order. Then there's the one about birthright citizenship.
John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. As you know, in the first week that the president was in office, signed an executive order as it relates to birthright citizenship, trying to eliminate that. Now, 22 state attorney generals have said that this is unconstitutional. A federal judge has just agreed with their argument. What's the administration's argument for doing away with birthright citizenship?
The folks that you mentioned have a right to have that legal opinion, but it is in disagreement with the legal opinion of this administration. This administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, and that is why President Trump signed that executive order. Illegal immigrants who come to this country and have a child are not subject to the laws of this jurisdiction. That's the opinion of this administration.
Actually, the 14th Amendment says, and I quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. All persons born. So it looks like Trump's order is unconstitutional, and no one asked Leavitt about that. But wait, there's more. Remember the promise not to lie? Well, she wasn't very far in this first press briefing before the press secretary lied about Donald Trump's recent press conference.
That's a good question, April. So look, the president, as you know, is incredibly accessible. First day here, he wanted all of you in the Oval Office. You got a 60-minute press conference with the leader of the free world while he was simultaneously signing executive orders. I may add that's pretty impressive. I don't think the previous office holder would be able to pull such a thing off.
Press conference? Accessible? The fact is, the event to which the press secretary was referring was not a press conference. It was an extended pool spray held before the legacy media. By the way, the legacy media are the only ones allowed in the pools. Not even the independent reporters are there. So she speaks to the legacy media all the time, and while she decries it, she needs it. So she lied about that. And by the way, while I was among the few who gave the previous administration a lot of grief over the fact that we didn't see Biden, well, not very often. Contrary to what Leavitt said, I will notice and remember that Biden pulled off a 2-hour press conference at the beginning of his administration during COVID in front of the open press, although there were only about 12 or 15 of us there because of COVID restrictions. By the way, Trump has never done that. Of course, Leavitt had to chime in about the egg controversy. Trump blamed Biden for the price of eggs during the campaign, and Leavitt even personally insulted Biden in her first press conference, as she said it was the Democrats blaming Trump for the price of eggs. You can't make this up.
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country.
Okay. Leavitt cheered Trump, and the press has yet to hold him accountable for his misogyny, misanthropic nature, convicted crimes, lies, bungles, bad faith deals, accusations, insults, injuries, and insanity. A few of us tried in the first administration. I asked him how he could call himself a law and order president when he kept breaking the law. He didn't like that one. And of course, here's the exchange that predicted the lies about the 2020 election and the insurrection. Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville. There's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
So, who will comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable today? Who will, as Ben Bagdikian, the former editor of the Washington Post, once told us, remember that our responsibility is to the public. By the way, even if we say things the public doesn't like, you're going to have to hear them from us, right, in the press. Don't shoot the messenger, folks. This week, the Donald Trump administration didn't meet the press. Donald Trump eats the press. And all of the independent content providers and whatever they do can't put that back together again. Hey, grow a set of balls and go after the facts. That's really the only way we're going to survive. Thanks for joining us on Reverse Shot. I am Brian Karam, and we'll catch you next time.